Today on Policy Focus, we shall be looking at the Naira floating policy, which was announced by the Central Bank of Nigeria earlier in the year. National economy is the heartbeat of any country. The first world nations did not attain their status of being labeled developed nations by mere landmass or population growth, but by their economic growth. Economic policymakers in those nations are always intentional on formulating policies that will strengthen the economy for national development. When the Central Bank of Nigeria announced Naira floating policy, the news was received by Nigerians with mixed reactions. Some economic analysts were of the opinion that the currency floating will decrease the value of Naira against foreign currencies, while others felt that it will help close the gap between official and parallel market exchange rates, boost investor confidence, increase foreign inflows, reduce import costs, and ease pressure on the Naira. Since the announcement was made, there has been an unprecedented fall of the value of Naira against the US dollars until recent times. 2 years ago, not even a soothsayer or a magic wand could have convinced Nigerians that in January 2024, Naira will decline to 1,500 against the dollar at the parallel market. It even went up to 1,800 Naira against the dollar. At the moment, the dollar is depreciating against the Naira. I know many viewers will be wondering what the Naira floating policy means. It is an economic policy where buyers and sellers of foreign currency in the official market are allowed to quote rates that they find comfortable against previous practices where rates were dictated by the Central Bank of Nigeria. There is no doubt that the constant increase in the value of the dollar against the Naira was among factors causing the hike in prices of goods and services in Nigeria, owing to the fact that our nation is an import-relying nation. I know the question on the lips of many Nigerians is, what measure is government putting in place to booster or to further boost the value of Naira at the wake of the Naira floating policy? Follow us, as in this program we will find answers to these questions and many more. I am Lydia Odidiochi. I'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. Before we continue on our topic, let's take our news update.
The Ministry of Women Affairs has expressed readiness to partner with the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies (NIPSS) on ways to improve the socio-economic status of women and also the welfare and well-being of the vulnerable. The visit was born out of a 2-day forum on the adoption of the Women Economic Empowerment Policy. During the visit, leader of the delegation, Professor Ayo Motayo, Director General NIPSS, commended the administration of President Bola Tinubu for appointing the minister who is determined and passionate to see the life of the Nigerian woman changed for the better. He also reiterated the Institute's commitment to support the welfare of women and the girl child in the country.
I wish that women can fight back and position themselves for something that they can actually come to the table and take something. Anytime I see an opportunity to promote women issues, I don't stop. And that is why when Professor Paramount suggested the idea of NIPSS having a gender center to promote women issues, I quickly accepted it.
The Director of Studies, NIPSS, Professor Olufunmilayo Paramalam MNI, appreciated the Minister for the audience given to NIPSS and the Ministry's willingness to partner with the Institute. She added that the Gender Center at the Institute was established as a resource center to bolster gender equality and inclusion. She is hopeful that the partnership will enable the Ministry achieve its goals.
Remembering that the National Institute is uniquely positioned as Nigeria's apex policy and research and leadership development institution, we believe that we are well suited to partner with, to have the kind of voice and profile across the nation and across the continent. So then please we look forward to working closely with you. So we are really passionate about ensuring that we provide this, whether it's research or studies or training, to be able to say, here is a resource that you can use. Say, please, I want to send 100 women, I want to send 50 women, I want to send women from the state, the local government, train them for me. We will be there to do that for you, to be able to ensure that the Ministry of Women Affairs achieves its mandate of mainstreaming gender across all sectors of the national economy. How do we do that? We must fill the gaps. Where there is capacity lack, where there is knowledge gap, we must be able to strengthen women's capacity to have the knowledge and the skills to be at the table and to take advantage of what is there on the table, to negotiate properly, whether it's about peace and security, governance and leadership, public policy, or what have you. We feel that Nigeria is an equal fight for women, and until the women come into their own, to be able to be equal partners in contributing to development, either through capacity building or even through skills development, that we will not make it as a nation.
Alongside the NIPSS entourage, the Executive Director, Development Research and Project Center, DRPC, Dr. Judith Ann Walker, a partner with the National Institute, talked about some challenges they face when advocating for policies for women and expressed gladness that the Ministry of the Women Affairs partnering with NIPSS is a step in the right direction.
Government organizations do not always collaborate well with civil society, especially women-led civil society organizations. But NIPSS is different. Since 2006, NIPSS has distinguished itself as willing and ready and able to collaborate and partner with a Nigerian civil society organization led by a woman and with many women in the executive of the organization. Why is that important? In our collaboration over the years, we have always sought to mainstream and bring the voice of women into the room. In the senior executive course of NIPSS over the years, we have always argued and gotten positive responses from NIPSS that we should have women's policy dialogues with women talking about the issues. On the issue of universal health coverage, we brought women to NIPSS, and there was a dialogue, a very positive one, on the women's perspective on universal health coverage, on making things work, policy implementation. We have contributed, and we have always supported experts to come to NIPSS to discuss the issues from a real practical civil society point of view and from a woman's point of view. So for us, when the Gender Center finally came to fruition and it was launched, and there was approval for the Gender Center, this was for us the culmination of all our advocacy, our initiatives, and our support. So we are no longer talking about mainstreaming and the voices of women coming in now and again, but now there's an institutional response to the need to include women in the policy making, in the training, and the research. And for us, this is an initiative that should be supported.
In her response, the minister, Barrister Uju Kennedy Ohanenye, said a huge trajectory it is for a reputable institute as NIPSS to veer into gender matters and expressed hope that the Gender Center at NIPSS will open up new vistas of opportunities for the ministry to have impactful policies that will promote the interest of women in Nigeria.
I appreciate you. I asked this question for a reason. It's been a round circle thing. So if I will partner with you people, we have to change the narratives and move for something that will quickly help the nation. Because if we've been talking about this, almost all the donors that come in here, we just focus the CSOs, whom in normal circumstances I should be having problems with, because it's only in Africa donors come here with useless things that will favor the nation. And they bring in the money, find a way to siphon it, take it back, and give peanuts to our CSOs, NGOs, and our women. Our women don't even get any. What immediately you leave, I've cancelled all my appointments. It's only you people that decided to say, because it's you people that can lead, that bring food to the nation.
NIPSS remains the nation's foremost policy think tank, which develops a crop of top-class technocrats of high intellectual capacity that conceptualize and anchors the implementation of innovative and dynamic policy initiatives and strategies that are critical for national development. Chana Ejoga reporting for NIPSS Policy TV.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Keep watching NIPSS Policy TV.
It's new, it's fresh, it's all about policies and strategies. Watch out for NIPSS Policy TV programs on NTA News 24. Tune in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on DSTV Channel 419, GoTV Channel 26, Star Times Channels 101 and 433, and Free TV Channel 703. Miss this and miss out on policies that will affect you and our country. Join us.
Thank you for staying with us. Now back to our topic. The decline in the value of Naira emerged as the main cause of concern for the nation and its economic policy makers. Since the Naira floating policy was announced by the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Naira actually depreciated historically against the US dollar. As Nigerians worry about the Naira's fall in value in the parallel market, it is only appropriate that this constitutes the center of our discussion. Discussing this with me is an important personality. A former Commissioner of Finance in Imo State, Special Advisor to the Chairman, Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance, and Other Financial Institutions, Nigeria's first Professor of Capital Markets, Fellow, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, and Fellow, Institute of Chartered Accountants, Director of the Institute of Capital Market Studies at Nassarawa State University, Kefi. I'm talking about Professor Uchenna Uwaleke. Glad to have you join us as our guest to discuss this national issue. We're glad to have you. To talk more on our topic, my special guest today is Professor Uche Uwaleke, a former Commissioner of Finance in Imo State. He was appointed Special Advisor to the Chairman of the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance, and Other Financial Institutions, Senator Mukail Adetokunbo Abiru. Professor Uwaleke is the Director of the Institute of Capital Market Studies at the Nassarawa State University in Kefi. Thank you for joining us. In fact, he holds so many caps, but let me just stop here. Thank you for joining us, Professor Uwaleke. And also
thanks so much.
And congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you, Lydia. My pleasure.
Okay. Now, there has been a conflict of argument since the inception of the Naira floating policy. Now, can you say the policy is a blessing or a curse to Nigeria?
Well, to start with, the unification of exchange rates, happens to be one of the major reforms this administration brought in as soon as it came into office. Of course, the other one has to do with the removal of fuel subsidy. There was a unanimity of opinion regarding the need to remove the multiple exchange rates that prevailed before the inception of this administration. So there was need to unify exchange rates because it was a practice, was encouraging round tripping, it was encouraging corruption. So the government came and unified the exchange rates. So what happened at the time was more of just aligning all the exchange rates to be one, and then giving some sort of freedom to market forces to determine the exchange rate. I also want to put on record that the central bank didn't and hasn't really floated the Naira. Floating the Naira would mean you throw the fate of the Naira, in the ring, and then you're allowing forces of demand and supply to completely determine the exchange rate. Yes, the central bank talks about willing buyer, willing seller, but we have also seen that the central bank from time to time has intervened in that market. So a complete float of the Naira is not practicable, it's not feasible in our situation, given that the fundamentals that support floats, currency floats, are not yet in place. So I wouldn't say the central bank has actually floated the Naira, because as I said earlier on, that's not a practicable thing to do. In the first place, the economy still doesn't have a diversified export base, and we also don't have the quantum of reserves to be able to support a complete Naira float. Doing so would have been a lot more devastating in terms of impact, on the economy. So what the central bank did was to unify exchange rates and then to, allow some degree of, market forces to determine, exchange rate, and while at the same time standing ready to intervene in that market from time to time. So that's what is happening now. Initially, the impression was that it was going to be a Naira float. I'm sure that's also the impression that was put out there. But it has become obvious now, given what has happened recently, that it is not feasible for the central bank to sit back and fold its arms and say, let market forces determine exchange rate. So the unification of exchange rate, of course, has brought in its wake a number of consequences, including unintended consequences. We have seen the exchange rate rise from what it was officially, I think around 450 Naira to the dollar at the time, to at some point 1,800 Naira. Yes. So it resulted in the devaluation of the Naira, and partly also subsequent depreciation that saw the Naira lose value, significantly. Now, what has happened, or what is happening now, is that the central bank has put in place a number of measures to address that and to ensure that the Naira regains stability. So what has the central bank done to do, in recent times to be able to achieve some sort of stability in the market? The first thing we note, one notes, is that the central bank was able to bring back confidence in the forex market through the clearance of forex backlogs. Now, before this time, when I say this time, I mean the inception of the administration, the central bank was owing a lot in terms of matured forex obligations. And that was also enabled by the multiple exchange rates that we had. The fact that we had at that time a secondary market sales window that was quite low, and we also had an investors and exporters window that was high. So it became difficult for the central bank to manage, and that resulted in a situation in which a lot of forex forward contracts were not met. So, and we had a lot of queues of people trying to access forex. So what the central bank started doing, especially after Femi Cardoso came on board, was to first of all clear those backlogs and bring back confidence. Because if you don't do that, nobody would want to bring in forex into your market. So we hear now that a good number of those backlogs have been cleared. The ones that have been confirmed, the valid ones have all been cleared. So that's kudos to the central bank.
Okay, sir. You said a lot about what the central bank has been doing to appreciate the Naira against the dollar. Now, for you as an expert, what would be your suggestion on how to further strengthen the currency in the international market?
The truth of the matter is that you see the currency has been battered by many factors over the years. The major factor being that we have relied, unfortunately, significantly on one source of forex. Exchange rate is principally or basically a price that is determined by demand and supply forces. But the supply side has been very low because over 85% of forex, or close to 90%, has come from this sale of crude oil. So that's just one fault. So we didn't over the years diversify our export base. So that is one crucial thing we need to do to sustain any form of low and stable exchange rate. We still don't have it, so government needs to continue to work on the issue of diversifying export base, including through agriculture and solid minerals. Okay, so everything doesn't have to be oil, which is why today I'm glad that the president is in Netherlands, and part of the discussion is how to attract foreign direct investment in the area of agriculture. Okay, because that is very critical. If we must have forex, then we must diversify our export base. Then, if we must also diversify our export base, we need to strengthen the institutions that are also created to help promote exports. One of those institutions is the NIPSS, the Nigerian Export-Import Bank. The Nigerian Export-Import Bank capital base today is very weak, at just $50 million or 50 billion naira. It is weak and is unable to perform its role of export promotion. Because if you compare the capital base of NIPSS with the capital base of other export credit agencies in the world, you'll see that our own is one of the least. So we need to strengthen institutions that are meant to promote exports. We need to promote deliberately, diversify our export base into agriculture, into solid minerals, into tourism, other areas that can bring in forex. That is the sustainable path to stabilizing exchange rate. And we also need to attract permanent capital. By permanent capital, I mean foreign direct investments. What we have been doing so far is attracting foreign portfolio investments. And foreign portfolio investments don't last, they don't stay. Foreign portfolio investments is the ones that come because you have increased your rate of return. So central bank recently has been increasing monetary policy rates because of the need to bring in dollars now, the urgency of dollars coming in now. But that is temporary, okay? That's not a permanent solution, because after 6 months, or 1 year maximum, when these people also want to leave with their dollars, you will still have to go and look for dollars to give them. So that's why I said it's hot money. It's not a sustainable way to attract forex. The more sustainable way to attract forex, apart from these exports that I talked about, is also to bring in foreign direct investments. So, and these investments, can come from countries like Netherlands, where the president is. The Netherlands very known for being active in foreign direct investments. Japan, China, Singapore, these are countries that are very active in the foreign direct investment space. So the president's visit to Netherlands, in my view, is something that will be positive for the economy, because the kind of discussion, the kind of investments they're talking about from Netherlands is not foreign portfolio, it is foreign direct investments, and that will bring in forex that will stay. That will also bring in create jobs for the economy and further strengthen the economy. So we need to really do those sustainable measures, foreign direct investments, diversifying our export base. That's on the supply side. Then on the demand side, it's also very important we encourage or deliberately promote patronage of goods manufactured in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We find today a lot of people going abroad for education, a lot of people going abroad for health, because we have not really invested enough in these sectors. So we need to also fix the issues in the education sector, in the health sector, to reduce the number of people seeking, going abroad for foreign tourism, health tourism, and education tourism. That will reduce the demand pressure, on the dollar. Then the Buy Nigerian law is also important. When we have a Buy Nigerian law, the ministries, departments, and agencies of government, the National Assembly will be compelled to also patronize goods that are produced here. Okay, so these for me are the low-hanging fruits that will ensure a sustainable path to achieving low and stable exchange rate. All that is happening now are temporary. They are stopgap measures, even though they are needed at least to calm the situation. But more importantly, the government should be focusing on the longer term and sustainable path. Okay, yes, we need to produce or export, okay, and we need to attract investments that will stay, not just the ones people who are coming to buy our treasury bills, foreigners coming to buy our treasury bills because interest rates are high, because that can also be distortionary, okay, especially when these foreign investors eventually want to exit.
Okay, now, Prof, going down memory lane, in 2016 to be precise, our currency was floated by the Central Bank of Nigeria, and the Naira started losing its value immediately. Now, after some time, the policy was reversed. Now, if this policy failed in 2016, do you think it would work in 2024?
It will not work. Currency floats will not work in Nigeria. And I told you why it will not work. The forces are not on balance. You have very huge demand for Forex. You have low supply of Forex. So currency floats will not work. The same way it didn't work in 2016. Because once you say you're floating your currency, this great mismatch between demand and supply will ensure that you not only have very high exchange rate, but it's also going to be volatile. And that is why it's important that the central bank should be intervening in the markets, from time to time. So what appears ideal for Nigeria at this point in time is managed float. Managed float is a situation where, yes, you allow market forces to be doing their thing, but you're also watching and intervening, from time to time to ensure that the market does not fail, or to ensure that, yes, the allocation is, by market, is fairly done. And that's why the central bank, recently started selling dollars again to, BDCs. Before they started the sale of dollars, they saw where exchange rate, was, okay, close to 1,800. But when they started selling dollars, when they started giving the signal that they were also ready to intervene, okay, we now saw exchange rates, begin to come down. So a complete float is not feasible. It didn't work before, and it won't work now. If there's any attempt to say that we are floating in Naira, it will backfire. So I'm sure that has been recognized. Otherwise, central bank wouldn't be selling dollars to BDCs, because if you are floating, you don't need to sell dollars to BDCs. That means you want market forces to simply BDCs will source Forex from wherever they can. So that the central bank is selling dollars to BDCs now tells you that some sort of intervention is being done to ensure that there is liquidity in the market, especially at the retail end of the market. All right. And central bank has also borrowed, government has borrowed some money, which of course is at the disposal of the central bank. The loan from Afrexim Bank, the one from the World Bank, another one is being expected from the World Bank. Okay. All this Forex, of course, would eventually go into our reserves to enable the central bank to do these interventions. Okay. The idea of saying let's float, I want to repeat, is something that simply will not work, because the major supplier of Forex in the Forex market today is the central bank. So when the central bank stops supplying, withdraws in the name of float, okay, the Forex market will simply collapse. Because exchange rate is not something we can cope with. So when it happened in 2016, there was need to reverse it because of these weak fundamentals, and the weak fundamentals have remained. We have not corrected them, so that is why we're having this, challenge.
Yes, Prof. On the news and on the social media, you can see lots of reports talking about the Naira appreciating. Yet the cost of goods in the market have been on the increase on a daily basis. Now, what parameters should Nigeria put in place to ensure affordability of the price of goods in the market? It's really alarming.
Yes, it's disturbing. You can see where inflation rate is today, that's 33.2%. And to make matters worse, food inflation is at 40%. So the food pressure is what we have. So what that tells you is that yes, high exchange rate affects inflation, affects commodity prices, but there are also other factors that are fundamental. And except they are addressed, even when exchange rate appears to be coming down, okay, and those factors have not been addressed, inflation will still be high. So, and what are those factors? Those factors are mainly factors that are outside the control of the central bank. We are talking about insecurity, for example. Insecurity that prevents farmers from going to farms. And that's why food output today is lower than where it ought to be. Okay, so food inflation is where the pressure point is. If farmers are able to go to farms, kidnapping, reduce banditry, reduce significantly, of course, we'll begin to see increased food output. We'll begin to also see lower food prices. The same thing goes, the same thing to, one can also say with respect to the transportation. The high cost of transport is also affecting food prices. Okay, people produce, but before they can convey the goods from the farm to the, take them from the farm gate to the market, it costs them so much. So high cost of transport, high cost of logistics is also a factor. So, and that also speaks to the need for the government to work on this issue of transport. I'm happy the government has said it's bringing in buses, CNG buses. Okay, so I'm sure that should go a long way to ease this problem of high cost of transportation. And then associated with that is the rising cost of energy, the rising cost of fuel. Okay, today, as we speak, there is fuel scarcity. In Abuja, I don't know about Jos, but there is fuel scarcity. Even though NNPC has said is to do with logistics. Again, the same issue of transport. Okay, now the one is happy with what the Minister for Works is doing. A number of projects are going on. Okay, so I'm sure that will also help to bring down the cost of commodities, particularly food. Okay, and that's also why I will advise the government to defer this idea of or suspend this electricity tariff hike that has just happened, because it will further also compound the problem. Okay, if there will be reforms in the electricity sector, of course they are welcome, but if they will involve tariff hikes, okay, that can wait until maybe inflation is contained, the rising inflation is contained, and then gradually, that can be introduced. But the electricity hike that is being implemented now will further compound the inflationary problem. That's why I said it's not just about the central bank. Whatever the central bank does now, okay, even if exchange rate is coming down and these factors are still there, you will still have rising inflation. And remember too, a lot of people have, bought goods, items when exchange rate was very, very high. So until those stocks are exhausted and they go to restock at a lower exchange rate, we may not see a reduction in the price of, goods and services, particularly for items that are imported. But for locally made products like Gary, for example, yams, for example, they are not imported now. Okay, so the price of these items locally produced are majorly affected by these other issues I mentioned: high cost of energy, transport challenges, insecurity, and so on and so forth. And that's what the government should be dealing with.
Okay, you've outrightly told us now that the floating of the Naira policy will not work. It never worked before, it will not work now. Now,
Absolutely.
what should be the role of the private sector as regards appreciating the Naira?
Yeah, of course, the private sector has a major role to play in the economy. The private sector is expected to also attract forex, but that private sector can only do that when the environment is conducive, and conducive environment is for the government to provide. Okay, so where the environment is conducive, by that I mean in terms of power supply, for example, electricity, for example, security, for example, okay, the ease of doing business generally, okay, and you also have a situation in which the private sector does not suffer from multiple taxes, okay. So when the environment is right, conducive, the private sector is encouraged to produce, okay. The private sector is encouraged to be productive, and it is that production from the private sector, okay, whether in terms of tangible or even intangible goods, that will now attract the the forex, because what the private sector will be doing will also help to bring in forex. So even the export we are talking about, diversifying the export base, of course, the private sector has a major role to play. If the environment is conducive and these big businesses are producing, okay, and they produce to the point where they export, that's when we also get forex. Today, a number of businesses are leaving the country or even exiting. They find them, they tell you they want to exit the stock exchange, they exit the market, partly because of macroeconomic challenges, including difficulty in accessing forex. I'm sure you heard about companies that have left and those that are also planning to leave. Okay, today PZ, GSK are talking about leaving the stock market, the stock exchange. So they complain about the challenges in the macro environment. So if the macro environment is right, the private sector is well positioned to play its role. As a matter of fact, the private sector should be the engine of the major driver of economic growth. All that the government needs to do is to be in the background and then provide enabling environment. And by so doing, the government will also benefit, because if the private sector does well, the business are doing well, including the informal sector of the economy, the government will get more revenue, more taxes will come in, and the government will be in a position to also deliver on its mandate of providing welfare and security, to the citizenry.
Okay. Now, Professor, as we round off this conversation, as an expert, what would be your suggestion to Nigerians and to government on how, or your parting words, I'm talking about your parting words now, on how government can further strengthen our economy amidst inflation that Nigerians are facing today? Your parting words, sir.
Yeah, yes, is a call to duty, to everyone. All hands must be on deck. When I say all hands, I don't just mean the federal government. The state governments, must be involved. The local governments must be involved. All the tiers of government, all the arms of government, legislature, and the judiciary, and also the private sector. All Nigerians must be involved. And one way we cannot be involved is to be patriotic, patronize locally made products, buy Nigerian-made goods. That will reduce the demand on the dollar. We should also not help in damaging our currency through speculative activity, especially the one fueled by crypto asset platforms. Okay, so it's all our duty to ensure that our currency strengthens, because it's going to be in the interest of everyone. Then on the part of government, I mentioned earlier, is to continue to provide enabling environment for production to take place, because at the end of the day, the sustainable part is production. We have something to exchange with the rest of the world. That's when we earn forex, and that's when we can truly stabilize the exchange rate.
Professor Uche Walike, we thank you for joining us on this conversation. I know that Nigerians have been well informed and enlightened. Thank you for your time, despite your busy schedule. We really appreciate you.
Keep watching.
Keep watching NIPSS Policy TV. You know, Nigeria cannot be seen in isolation of the global economic financial system. For the first time, Nigeria is getting more and more integrated into the international financial system or economic system. What do we say? We allow the forces of demand and supply, and we become very productive. We rely on the local economy in terms of our needs, and we should be able to have what we call structural linkage in the economy. That is to say, in the mining sector, we have petroleum. Then the manufacturing center is supposed to have, for example, a viable refinery system so that we can enjoy the comparative advantage of having petrol in Nigeria. We don't need to import petroleum, thereby needing a lot of reserves. So if we can be more productive, we can use more of Nigeria products. It means Naira will continue to appreciate and have more value, and then be able to attract investment and stabilize the local price.
Is that there is need to actually revamp production, local production, right? As we can see right now, that when Dangote started producing, we have seen how now the value of diesel had actually dropped. Jet A fuel, which is usually being imported, gradually will also now go down. It tells us now that when we produce locally, it saves us that foreign currency with which we used to import. That way, the value of our currency will become stronger. This is just one amongst so many other policies that could be in place.
The cases that we have, somebody will just go and get a fixed exchange rate from the CBN instead of going to export spare parts and produce locally. That person will just go to the black market and sell the dollar. So I support strongly the floating of the Naira against the fixing of the value of the Naira.
When you say fixed, it's like a policy when government will come and say, look, irrespective of the market dynamics, this is what we think is the value of our Naira. But whereas the market forces are saying that your Naira is not as valuable as what you are putting. So in that case, there will be a negative vibe with regards investment, meaning that investors will not want to come in to now bring in their money to invest, saying that, look, if I bring in my money, it will be undervalued. Because you are now putting a benchmark to say my money is this value. Whereas the internal market forces are saying that my money has much more value than what you're trying to fix it. So these are the implications of fixing. And if you can see, even the president recently, even in Riyadh, was saying that, look, we're not trying to fix, we're only trying to see to it that the Naira competes favorably by putting certain things in place to revamp it.
For anything you are capable of thinking about, it is possible for you to achieve them. Like they say, what's perceivable is achievable. A dream remains a dream if it is not followed up by actions.
Hello, welcome to Alumni Chat. I am Chana Ejaga. Today, our guest is AIG Obe Ochebi Rudolph, who is a directing staff at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. Sir, it's good to have you on the program.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Thank you. So, can we get to know you? Can you tell us what was your background growing up?
Great. Thank you very much. I grew up with a very strict father in a very local village. And the main occupation there is farming. And my father, I can rightly say, was a strict disciplinarian in the sense that before going to school in the morning, you even have to do some activities, course on the farm. To the village and the community, that was strange because the school starts around 7, 8 in the morning. And so what amount of work can a young man do before going to school on a day like that? But my father is strict in the sense that he expects that we should be up and doing. So very early in the morning, say between 5 and 6 in the morning, he wakes us up and you have your portion of the job that you must do before the day starts. I ran through the primary school by his grace, Wesley Primary School, and everything was normal to me. I grew up as a normal child. Thereafter, I had an elder brother that was a DO, then district officer, working in Boko, local government area of Benue State. And I had to join him after my primary school, where I proceeded to the secondary school, Government College Castinala. Castinala is just about less than 100 kilometers to Boko. But I need to mention quickly what informed my decision in some of the choices I made. My elder brother, that happened to be a PAMSEC at that time with the Benue State government, later left the service, Benue State service, and was transferred his service to the federal government. And it was then in Lagos, and he joined the Nigerian Police, Ministry of Police Affairs at that time. While he was there, I was doing my degree program in University of Jos. I finished with the first, after my first degree, I was posted again to Lagos for my NYSC. It was just coincidental. And I still stayed with him. And while I was there doing my NYSC, he suggested to me, come, we don't have anybody in the military or in the force like that. Won't you enlist with the police? I said, no, police is not my first choice. In fact, while I was at the University of Jos, I had interest in military. And so I enlisted, I joined this man of war club, and we were very active. My dream then was to join the Nigerian Air Force. While I was there, in fact, I even wrote to the Air Force that I was interested in enlisting in the Air Force. And they responded. I said, oh, great. You're already in for a degree program. After your degree program, you can maybe reapply for a short service, direct short service program. That was not to be. Won't you get into the police? Because I am working with them, and I think we need somebody like that. And in the Nigerian context, no matter what you know, if you don't have anybody in the police, in the military, it's like even your rights can be trampled upon. Yes. And my family being a very large family, which I didn't quite expatiate when I started, we needed somebody in the military. By the way, let me quickly go back and explain. I'm from the large family. My father is a polygamous home. He had, as at the time I was born into the family, I know my father had 4 wives. Wow. He is a local, chief. In fact, he's a chief in the sense that a customary chief judge. Wow. A customary judge, but they call him chief. And because of that, he had that aura of having people around him. I had 4 wives, and I happened to be a son to the second wife. Wow. And That was how I got into them, and that informed his being very strict, so that all the children, because we were so many, the family is quite large. As we speak, we are about 50 that are alive, directly from my father.
How has your experience here at the National Institute affected or impacted on your person and on your career?
Well, very positively, I must say, in the sense that I came with a different mindset as to what National Institute is. And how do I mean? These are for policymakers. What is police doing here? I'm just minding my business, doing my police job. What am I really doing here? But that changed a bit when I got here. In fact, I met people from different backgrounds. The focus of the theme of our study was completely different from what I have ever imagined in my life. And I think, to a large extent, for a human, somebody that is interested in what is going on in the system, I think it was a good thing that I came. I met with people from different backgrounds, and we interacted very well. My perspective in life changed a little, to some extent, to the extent that I was not looking at things purely from the police perspective anymore, but this time around, from a more broader perspective, analyzing policies and bringing out issues that could be used to maybe bring a better society.
Can you tell us what were your highs and lows during those moments?
Let me put it this way. I am somebody that is very active, especially in sports and athletics. One of my hobbies is exercise in the morning, and the rest of them. My basic hobbies are watching football and traveling. And I make myself fit by doing a lot of exercise personally.
People see the Association of the Alumnus of the National Institute, which is ANI, to be an elitist group. What's your take on that?
Yes, I think to some extent it is. One, the caliber of people that are brought in here are people that have attained a certain status in life, and so it's not like somebody would say this for everybody.
Yeah.
So that to some extent makes it an elitist kind of group.
Thank you so much for giving us your time to have this lovely chat. I am Chana Ijoga. Stay with us, more to come after the break.
Keep watching NIPSS Policy TV. Keep watching NIPSS Policy TV.
The Nigerian market is highly dependent on imports. When the value of dollar increases against Naira, cost of imports increases, and that causes a hike in the prices of goods and services in the market. For Nigeria to have fair prices of goods and services, our economic policymakers need to formulate policies that will appreciate the value of Naira against the dollar, as is the case now. Thank you for being part of our program. I am Lydia Odijochi, and see you next time. Goodbye.